So we're joined all the way from Los Angeles, California, by my friend Tanisha Lyons-Porter, owner of Natural Born Organizers. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today. This is our entrepreneurship class here at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. And I've got a room full here with me now. So we thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to speak with you and your students because this industry is such a unique industry and a small industry. And so, one of the things that we are really pushing is to introduce it to the younger generation, right? And
Yeah.
so, I was like, yes, yes, let me talk to them. Let me talk to them.
Now, obviously, we want to talk about all you do, but give us a little background. You are originally from Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and you went across the country to Howard University in Washington,
Thank
D.C., one of the
you.
top HBCUs, one of the top HBCUs
See my
in the
degree?
country. Yeah, that's incredible. But your degree has nothing to do with what you're doing now. So just give us a little background about, your HBCU experience and that degree that you got.
Okay. So yeah, born, raised in Los Angeles, California. And when I was in high school, that was when a different world, when the Cosby Show and A Different World started, right? And so there are no HBCUs on the West Coast, right? And
Yeah.
so when I was younger, probably middle school, elementary school was when BET first came about, right? So BET was not always there. And a lot of times we weren't the HBCU football games and things were not shown on regular ESPN like it is now, right? Like I literally just watched the real HU and the other people battle it out on the football field, right? On ESPN. Like normally we had to go to BET to watch that, right? And so when I was growing up, when I was your age, it was BET and it was the Cosby Show and it was a different world. And I was like, I want to go there, right? Because as much as I love LA and it is diverse, I went to a
Yeah.
predominantly white middle school. I went to a predominantly white high school because although I live in the suburbs of LA, I'm just a spit's throw. I'm hood adjacent, as they would say, right? And so my parents sent me, I was bused to another school. And so I was like, yes, I want to go to a HBCU. And so I applied to, I don't know, probably 30 plus HBCUs. Howard was the very last to send me their acceptance. I got accepted to every single one except for Spelman. And I was like, that's where I want to go. Howard. That's there. And although my degree was in computer information systems, it was in the School of Business. So although I'm not doing exactly what I went to school for, I did go to school for business and Natural Born Organizers is honestly my fifth business. My very
Oh,
first business, I was actually at Howard with my high school and college sweetheart, and we started a t-shirt apparel company called Black
oh,
College
cool.
Apparel. So
Wow.
this is by far my most successful. But yeah, that's my journey. And being
Yeah.
at Howard University was the best time of my life. My
Yeah.
very
And, bi- and,
closest
big,
friends. Yeah.
and big shout out to Nick Askew, the swim coach there at Howard. He's also been on this
Yes.
platform as well. Great guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, but you spent a lot of time in corporate America,
Yeah, I did.
using that degree. But you always kind of had that entrepreneurship spirit, and you said even though you weren't a full-time entrepreneur, you were still doing the hustling. So just talk about how that even though you were doing other businesses, how that led to get into this business, which is a new and growing area.
It is. It is. So, when I was in high school, entrepreneurship, I'm the first as far as an entrepreneur. Well, my dad is an entrepreneur in the sense that he owns properties, right? And he was like the landlord of a property. But in the business sense of the world, I'm the first in my family. So I didn't really have that many examples, but entrepreneurship when I was in high school was starting to be discussed a lot. And the thing that I kept hearing was, if you're thinking about starting a business, start a business in something that you feel passionate about, that you're good at, right? Like that you would do for free. And so that was always in the back of my mind. And so I think the very first business was it was a pamper party, right? And it started because my daughter was turning 10 and she wanted to be like her auntie and like her mom and be pampered. So I invited her friends over and we did manicures and pedicures and facials and all DIY type of stuff, right? She was 10. That was the first one. And I did it. I did a bunch of parties for a few years, but I couldn't, this is a key. I couldn't figure out at that point, because at that point I was, let's see, if she was 10, that means I was like 33. I was in my early 30s. I didn't know how to scale it,
There
right?
you go.
I couldn't figure out how to scale that. And pretty much that was the same with every other one of my businesses. I love scrapbooking, right? Not everybody can scrapbook. And I got clients scrapbooking, but the amount of time and brain power and creativity to be able to transform someone's photos from when they went to South Africa into some type of story so they could just hand over this book of photos and they tell the story whether they're there or not. That took time, and I couldn't figure out how to, number one, scale that or price it accordingly to where it made sense, right?
Yeah.
So, so that is the key with business entrepreneurship, is the ability to scale, because we can get to six figures as a small percentage of businesses that make six figures in a year. It really is a small percentage. You wouldn't know that by social media, but it is.
There you go.
But if you do the things, you can get to six figures and multiple six figures by yourself, but you can't scale beyond that by yourself. And so it has to be part of it has to be part of your plan. And you just can't willy-nilly and hustle your way to that. But yeah, I did all of those while working in corporate, off on the side, on the weekends, on the weekends during the evenings. I would take, listen, you got vacation time and sick time? I took it when there was a conflict. But when natural born organizers, it got to the point to where I couldn't juggle them. I couldn't juggle them anymore. And, I gotten a few celebrity clients and they were talking. And I just started building, and it got to the point to where either I was going to get fired or the business was gonna suffer, right? And so I had to take that leap, and yeah, and that's where I'm at now.
Well, that's a great problem to have, to
Mhm.
be able to choose between being a full-time entrepreneur and keep and holding on to your day job.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is a new type of business, and we were looking at some of your videos. I just remember thinking, I was like, "There's no way in the world I could ever be that organized to do something like that." But the more we looked at it and we talked about it a little bit, this is something that would be needed because people expand their families. People want to remodel their homes. People want to be able to find things they may have lost after the death of a loved one.
Yep.
So, and that's just off the top of my head. That is reasons why this business would be needed. So,
Hmm.
just talk about how you chose to get into this type of a business.
Yeah. So, all of those things, I'm so glad you said that, because the majority of the time when people think of or discover professional organizers, they think of hoarders, right? And that literally is only 3% of the population. Most people are not people who hoard. But back to your question, back in '08, during the '08 '09 recession, everyone who was in corporate, people were losing their jobs left and right,
Yeah.
right? People who had been career people, in corporate. They've been working there for 25, 30 years. That was their only job outside of college or straight into high school. They were losing their jobs. And so it was like employers were not loyal at all. And so going back to always thinking about, oh, what do I like to do? Oh, I need to have something in my back pocket. My husband and I ironically bought our first house in Los Angeles in '09, right?
Wow.
And so it was shaky, but as when you move someplace, you watch HGTV. And there was a show that came on that had an organizing expert. And I was like, whoa, whoa, what is this? what is this? And I started Googling it and finding out there were national associations of them, and that, it was
Wow.
founded in Los Angeles, and it was founded by a group of women who were very good at creating order out of chaos, and not only creating it, but being able to transfer the skills so someone could actually do it themselves afterwards and maintain it. And so they
Wow.
started this association to differentiate themselves from cleaners and like interior designers, because we're kind of all melded in together. And so from then, I just started remembering, oh my God, you've been about this life for a long time. Because then I started remembering in the sixth grade, I would stay in my sixth grade teacher's classroom and help her reorganize the classroom. We had
Yeah.
big floor to ceiling, like
Yeah.
bookcases full of stuff with
Yeah.
no separation,
Yeah,
just
I have some of those helpers too.
yeah, right. And so I would stay in and I would like help organize the classroom, right? When it was time at the end of the school year, I would help her pack up the classroom. And so I used to do this. And then when I was in high school, my parents had like a group of married friends that they would travel to Cancun and Cabo, right? When they first was like building up, and they would go like long weekends. And so I would be at home with my sister who was 6 years younger than me, and I would literally go into the cupboards and I would the pantry, and I would throw out like the cereal that got the little weebles in it, right? And I would throw out the flour that was rock hard. I would go into the laundry, the linen closet, right? Because I was always the one to have to put up the linens and the towels and stuff, and there was no room. So I was like, look, I can't make a miracle out of nothing. So I would go in there and I would find the towels that were ripped or stained, or we've had forever and wasn't even drying anymore because it was rough, like sandpaper. Or I would find the sheets to a twin bed, and when they ain't been a twin bed in the house for I don't know how many years. And so I would literally do that while my parents were out of town. So I just started thinking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, like you were organizing for not only yourself, but for other people since you were young. And I was always moving my furniture around in my bedroom to try and find the most efficient way to use my space. So all of that was '09. So like in 2010 through 2012, I would like tell people about it. Like, could you see me doing this? And they were like, yeah, and you can practice on my closet, right? Like, yeah, you see that car every time you come in, you gotta move stuff around. You can, yeah, get to work. So I just started taking pictures and practicing to see if I could do it for other people. Because there's a thing. You can be great at something, but if you want to be a service-based business, you have to be able to do it for other people, right?
Yeah.
And that was the difference. I know a lot of organized people that cannot do it for other people. And so I was just practicing for like a few years, and then I launched the business in January 2013, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, and just based off of your content, you've been all over the country doing it. This is not something you've only done in California. You've literally had people fly you across the country to organize spaces.
Yeah, yeah. I'm totally excited. Like, and the beauty about owning your own business, like Howard's homecoming is in October, right? And so I knew I was going to be there the third week in October. So I sent out a mass email and talked to, my past clients and people who were on my email list, because marketing is important. And I was like, hey, I got a few dates, between the 21st and the 23rd of October. I'm gonna be in DC. So hey, the DMV, y'all want me? I got three or 4 days. Let me know. And literally, I'm booked the 2 or 3 days before homecoming. So now homecoming is now a business trip that I can write off.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to wind up not costing you anything either. Uh,
Exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
you mentioned marketing and you
Mhm.
mentioned customer service, because anytime it's a service-based business, because a lot of young people, they want to do the clothes, they want to do the shoes and the jewelry, and all that's great because you can make a lot of money in that. But
Mhm.
when it comes to the service, the customer service is even more important, because they always say you need the customer more than the customer needs you. So
Mhm.
how do you show that not only you're the best, but you're worth what you're asking for in your price, because that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down is pricing.
Mhm.
Because I try to let these students know that people will pay for convenience. If they know that you're not only going to do a great job, but you're going to take care of everything that they need on one trip, it is amazing how much more that will not only allow, but demand that you charge more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's really off of consistency and repeatable results. And so my clients know that they can call me, they can send me pictures, they can tell me what their goal is because their goal does not have to match my goal or my logic of what I think, right? It's literally meeting them where they are right now and getting them to where they want to be, right? And I have proven those results over and over and over again from from a client, a famous NBA player moving to a new house that he owned. It's like they don't want nothing to do with it. They want to be able to walk in, Fourth of July weekend and have a Fourth of July weekend pool party, right? That meant working with their interior designer. That meant, and they weren't bringing nothing but maybe a couple of pieces of luggage. That meant understanding what he needed for his house, what he shopped, what he wanted in his pantry, what type of things he wanted in his theater room, doing all that stuff and making sure things were managing the project to make sure that everything that he needed in order to walk into his house day one, and it's like he's already moved in, happen. And it's doing that over and over again. And when you do that, people want to tell you and tell other people how good you are. And I may not be able to tell the internets, the people that I've worked with. So I've worked with celebrities. They're like maybe 20% of my total, clientele. And I may not be able to tell the world who I work with because of NDAs, but they will tell their circle that I work with them. And I used to be like, well, I don't want to put celebrity organizer on my profile because I can't tell them who I work with. But after being referred a few times and a few times to their friends, and I'm like, yeah, but I am, right? But I am. And because I'm discreet, because when you're in people's homes, whether they're a celebrity or they're, the principal at the local school, you're in their homes. You're touching their things. You're hearing things that are going on in their daily life. And they want to know that that is going to stay within those walls, the confines of their home. And that's important. It's important that someone comes in that's not only organized in their own life, but will not judge whatever the current situation is, right? Because there's so many, y'all know, there's so many things that are going on in people's lives and in life that affects how you show up every single day. And all you need, even me, all I need is a couple of crazy days or crazy weeks. And this house looks like who done it and how, like who lives here, right? But the difference is because I don't have a lot of extra things that don't fit in the places where they need to go, it doesn't take me long to get things together. And that's what I communicate to my clients. It's like, listen, life is crazy and being organized is like it's a self-care act because
Yeah.
it helps for your space in your home to support you whether you're up or down or anywhere in the middle. And so that repeatedness of my service to where my customer comes first and what they need in that moment comes first, um and that repeated result of getting them where they wanted to be when they reached out to me, that is always going to that is going to be the difference, right? Between someone who is charging the same as a cleaner, which listen, there are cleaners that will deep clean the heck out of a house. I don't like cleaning, right? So if I know that you can get them baseboards that ain't been touched in, 2 or 3 years, I'm paying you a little bit extra because these arms are only going to scrub so much, right? And so the fact that a customer will know that you can hit a basement that has been the catch-all for everything, that has your grandmother, your great grandmother's things after they've passed, and you need help going through that because you feel like it's going to be too emotional. That is, the manual labor, that is mental health, right? And that is also self-care for the future because now I'm going to have space. Now I'm going to be able to use this space again, and that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, and you have such a cool slogan, and we looked at it as "No judgment, we're here to help,"
Mhm.
because you aren't there to say, you aren't there to come down on people and say, "I can't believe you're living like this," because you even said yourself, most of the time it's not even a hoarder. It's maybe it's people that could have had a stressful, could have just experienced a sudden death in the family, and they want to get their life back together, or like you said, if they want to have kids and they need to make room for their kids, if they want
Yep.
to add a room onto their house and they need and they're lost on how to organize it. That is
Yep.
all very important things that could be, that's not going away. And
It's not going
people are
away.
always, kids, people are always gonna do remodels. People are always gonna have to move on from losses. So that is such a great way to market. Now,
Thank
before I get
you.
to their questions,
Okay.
I do want to talk a little bit about, the sales skills because they just moan and groan when I make them get up and present, and they don't like talking in front of the class.
Yeah.
And I got to give this is a really good class I had with me. They do a great job, so I applaud their effort. But that is a skill that you can never ever practice enough. Because even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, because I know a few of them do, but some of them are in the class, they like it, but they're never going to be entrepreneurs, and that's fine. They'll be great employees thinking like entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're ever going to be successful in business, you've got to be able to communicate. You've got to be able to, especially if you're service based, you've got to look somebody in the eye. You've got to say, "Here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's an example of it." I always use hairstylists as an example because they say, "Well, I'm never going to have to speak to big groups." No, but you're going to have to talk to somebody that's trusting you with their look, sitting in your chair, and say, "Here's what I'm going to do with your hair."
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you got to tell them how much it costs. You can't be nervous on things like that.
Exactly.
Uh, I know you've been on ABC News and on TV and in magazines. I've spoken in front of 2,000 people, so it's easy for me. And I understand it's not hard, it's not easy for everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
that is a skill that you can never ever practice enough. So why is it so important to master that skill right now in high school?
You know what? Because even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, there are still going to be times in your life that you are going to need to sell yourself. Every time you are going in for a interview of any kind, whether it is an interview to join an association, whether it is an interview to join a fraternity or sorority, whether it is an interview to a college interview, or a job interview, you are selling yourself to whoever is sitting in front of you, right? You are selling your personality, your skills, your upbringing, the things you've overcome, the things you've learned over the years, and how that translates into what that person is looking for. That is selling. You may not be trading a service or a thing for money, but we're constantly selling ourselves. We're constantly selling ourselves, right? To someone for something, for access, right? For something. And so the earlier you can become more comfortable with it, you're only going to get better. I was not a sales. That was the one thing. I love doing what I do, but
Yeah,
I had to learn how to sell. And that came from business coaches, right? Like your teacher. Your teacher is your coach. That came from that. And sometimes it starts with a template. You can have talking points, right? Like understanding what the value is of what you are pitching to someone, right? And it could be like if you're a journalist, if you're an independent journalist, you're going to have to sell to an editor that you can write, that this story is a story that needs to be in the newspaper or needs to be on TV. Like you're always going to be selling. So the earlier that you can get comfortable with it, the better, right? Because it's something that is, it's invaluable. It's invaluable. And when I started, I literally started with talking points. And then you get comfortable with it. And then the more you hear about, the more you're talking with your customers, the more you understand what their objections are, right? Like, I just don't have the money, or my husband or my partner thinks that we should be able to figure it out ourselves. And then you get that understanding on how to talk to that. It's like, well, yeah, what I do isn't rocket science, but how long have you all been talking about remodeling your basement and finishing your basement, but the thing that's coming that's in between that is all the stuff that's in there, right? And so, yeah, you could do it yourself, but you're also trying to get your kid out of high school and get him into college. You're also, your mom is sick, and so you're kind of caregiving, you have a stressful job, you're an attorney and you're working 12 hours, a day, 11 days a week. So it's like, yeah, you could, but you know you haven't because of all of these different valid reasons. So, and that is selling to an objection,
There
right?
you go.
But yeah, it is a useful skill that you will use for the rest of your life, even in relationships. Even in relationships. When you have disagreements and like that, you're selling and being comfortable talking to people and being able to speak to objections. That's a skill, baby. That's a skill that you can have with a relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship. Y'all learn. It's not just it's uncomfortable, but the more you get comfortable with it, you're gonna see how when you get to college and even throughout your how the little things that your teacher has been teaching you, you're gonna be, oh, I remember when we talked about that in the entrepreneurial class. So it's so important. So take
Yeah.
it out of the sphere of business and just put it into life.
Yeah, and I'm not one to brag, but I have heard that 1,000 times. People come back and say, "Well, yeah, I remember we talked about that. I wish I'd have listened." But I do
Right.
have some questions. I do have some questions from the students, and these
Okay.
are excellent. And I don't coach these at all, but they're coming up with
Okay.
these on their own. I love
Good.
this first one. This is Avery Harris. She's in 10th grade, one of our champion archers here at Velma Jackson High School. And she asked, "How do you approach a new project? Do you have an intake questionnaire to understand your client's needs?"
I do. And this is another big thing as far as a business and in this new age, it's automated. So if you go to my website, you see a form. And so they click the form and they answer a bunch of questions that gives me an idea of what they want. From that, they automatically get a link to book a 15-minute needs assessment that's on Zoom that I then we can talk and I can get a quick idea of the area. And then from that, I've used AI to create a needs assessment summary, right? Based off of the transcripts from Zoom. And then I send that back to them. Then I can give them an idea of how many hours or days I think it will take. But after so many years of doing it, I can look at, let's say, a closet, and I can know approximately how long it might take, depending on if there's a lot of things on the floor. Do I need to change out hangers? Do I need to fold a lot of things? That will tell me how long it will take because those things add up. If I have to do a lot of folding, if I'm switching out hangers versus just kind of rearranging things and decluttering. So yes, I have an intake form to ask them where they're from, their the time zone, what budget they think they have set aside for this, what their biggest challenge has been. Have they hired an organizer in the past? So yes, I do.
That's awesome. I like this one. This is Albrianna Towner. She's in 11th grade. And she asked, "What do you like most about organizing people's homes?"
Really, honestly, I like the results of how the ripple effect on how it affects the person. Because there's a certain point in when I'm working with people, because I look at any project, I'm not scared. Like people be like, I know this is the worst you've seen. Nah, I'm not scared. I'm not scared at all. But it's the point where I'm walking in and we're working and the person is shameful. They feel guilty that they had to hire someone like me. They feel shameful that they couldn't figure it out on their own. And I can feel that in their energy, right? And at a certain point, when there's a corner that has not been cleared since I don't know how long, and they start bringing out the vacuum because they're like, oh, let me vacuum this up, or they dust, that means that flat surfaces are exposed. And their shoulders start to come back, their chin starts to uplift, their tone, their energy just shifts because now they have hope that what they thought was hopeless is actually possible if they continue on with the process. That is what I love. I
Yeah.
love it because it is a shift in their life that can affect so many different things, and that makes me excited, and that's why I do it. I love the color coding, but that's not really why I do it.
All right, I got time for two more. I like this one. This is
Okay.
Michaela Burt. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players and band members here at Velma Jackson. And she
Hey.
asked, how do you help clients organize, or I'm sorry, maintain organization after you finished?
So it's multifaceted. So the key with the way that I work with my clients is that I try and understand the way they think. So if they're neurodivergent, if they're neurotypical, if they're in a moment of transition where their life is just in turmoil, have they ever been organized? What's worked with them in the past? And getting an understanding how the household flows if there are other people that live in the house. And so I take all that into account when I'm helping them create a system in their house. So I do not create systems the way I think and the way I would set up my house. I create it for them. And then normally we'll have like a follow-up to where things might need to be tweaked. But that's the key, right? The key is setting up the system for where that person is now and the why, the how they got there, because then it makes sense for them and it's easier for them to maintain. But normally it takes a minute, right? Because it's a new routine, it's a new habit. So we normally will we're intertwine like refreshes and follow-ups. Then after that, the majority of the time they've got it.
That's awesome. Well, I got one more. This is
Yeah.
really funny. This is Anaya Goen. She's in 10th grade, one of our power lifters here. And she
Hey.
asked, what is the worst thing you've ever seen while organizing someone's home?
Oh, the worst was a family had a new dog, a puppy, and
They're
both
already grown in.
exactly had gotten a puppy. It was crated, and it was at the age before it got its shots that can't really be outside and whatever. And unfortunately, both of the adults had really crazy busy lives. I think the one of the adults, there may have been some addiction or mental health things. The other was just super super busy. And so it was a lot of smell of urine. There was some dog feces. Um and yeah, like I it that's when I wish it was like in the dead of COVID, because then I could have had a mask on. I could have had my essential oils inside, you know. But I think that is prop that in someone who has I do have a client that has like 8 animals between cats and dogs. They inherited some from their mother who passed and then theirs, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And so there's a lot of it's like cats and dogs that do shed. So it's a lot of pet hair. And I end up just being covered to the point to where I had to add like a lint roller to my toolkit and in my car, because there are times when I don't even want to get back into my car because I'm like just covered. So I was like, okay, I gotta like, you know. So yeah, those I think those have probably been my worst. And the thing about the one with the puppy, that was literally a 5-day job. So
Oh,
it wasn't even like I was in there for a day and then it was like it was a 5-day job.
wow. Well, and you got a great reaction on that, so that's funny. Well, we're almost out of time, man. We thank you so much for
You're
taking some time
welcome.
for us. But
You're
before we
welcome.
go, a couple things. First of all, naturalbornorganizers.com. All of your socials are on there.
Mhm.
That's also your channel on YouTube. A lot of cool content. Anywhere else where they can find you or see you?
I am on the TikToks. I am on TikTok. I just changed my thing, but I think it's like at home with Tanisha. Yes, that's me on the TikToks. But yeah, y'all just interact with me if you're on Instagram or TikTok. Interact with me, and if any of you all are interested in the industry, I'm always there. I'm in the associations nationwide on the board, and so I would love to discuss further if you ever
Now,
want to.
the last thing before we go
Yeah.
is, why should these kids really consider after matriculating through high school, whether they go to college or not? Because I'm all about giving them options. Why
Yeah.
should they really consider being an entrepreneur in a field that maybe, something that they haven't seen before? Maybe something new because this is a new venture for you. You'd never seen anybody do it, but yet you did it. You'd only seen it on TV. So why is
Mhm.
it worth it to take that risk?
because the growth is huge. The growth possibility is huge. And this is a field that not a lot of people can do, right? It a lot of people are overwhelmed by it. So if you like to create order from chaos, if your mind just kind of works like that, and you also you feel like you like to teach people and serve people, then yeah, I would say dive in because there's it's a small but yet big industry. So there's so much room to grow. There's so much room to grow. And yeah, you can control your destiny.
Love it. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us all the way from Los Angeles, California. Tanisha Lyons-Porter, the owner of Natural Born Organizers. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Talk to y'all later.
I see you.